What happens when a shopping mall mocks the volunteer Santa Claus, not knowing he's a Medal of Honor recipient who saved a general's life in Vietnam? And what occurs when that same general walks into the mall with his daughter on Christmas Eve? Subscribe now to witness the stories where dignity is restored and heroes are finally recognized under the most unexpected Christmas lights. This is Colonel Robert Mitchell, a red suit, a white beard, and the moment a mall learned that some Santas carry more than just toys, they carry the weight of a nation's gratitude. Colorado Springs Galleria Mall, December 24th, Christmas Eve. The mall was a symphony of chaos. Last-minute shoppers rushing through decorated corridors, children screaming with excitement, Christmas music pouring from every speaker. In the center court, surrounded by an elaborate North Pole display with fake snow, candy canes, and twinkling lights, sat Santa's workshop. And in the big red chair sat Colonel Robert, Bob, Mitchell, 73 years old. Bob wore the full costume, red velvet suit, slightly faded from years of use, white fur trim, black boots, his own, polished from military habit, and a synthetic white beard held by elastic. The suit didn't fit perfectly, too loose in some places, too tight in others. The beard was obviously fake, the kind bought from a costume shop for $19.99. But Bob's eyes, pale blue, sharp, patient, those were real. And the way he listened to each child, leaning forward with genuine interest, giving every single one his complete attention, that was real too. He'd been volunteering as the mall Santa for 6 years, ever since his wife passed. The mall didn't pay him. He didn't want payment. He just wanted to see children smile. After decades of witnessing the worst humanity could offer in the jungles of Vietnam, watching a child's face light up when they whispered their Christmas wishes felt like a kind of redemption. Tyler Morrison, the mall's assistant manager, stood near the photo backdrop with his arms crossed, watching Bob with barely concealed contempt. At 28, Tyler wore his authority like a too-tight suit, constantly adjusting it, reminding everyone he had it. "We really need to upgrade this setup next year," Tyler muttered to Kayla, the teenage photographer manning the camera. "Look at him. That beard is pathetic. Kids these days can tell it's fake from a mile away." Kayla, 19, looked up from her phone. "I mean, he's a volunteer. What do you expect?" "I expect professionalism," Tyler said loudly enough for Bob to hear. "This isn't some retirement home activity. This is the Galleria. We have standards." Bob heard every word. He'd heard worse, much worse. In 1968, enemy soldiers had screamed at him in a language he didn't understand, while he lay wounded in a rice paddy. Tyler Morrison's passive-aggressive complaints barely registered. A little girl approached, maybe 5 years old, clutching her mother's hand. She wore a red dress and had ribbons in her hair. She stopped 3 feet from Bob, suddenly shy. Bob smiled warmly. "Hello there. What's your name?" "Emma," she whispered. "Emma, that's a beautiful name. Would you like to sit with Santa and tell me what you're hoping for this Christmas?" Emma nodded and climbed onto his lap. Her mother stepped back, smiling. "Phone ready for photos." "I want my daddy to come home," Emma said quietly. "He's a soldier. Mommy says he's far away." Bob's chest tightened. He knew that ache. He'd been that soldier far away. He'd left behind people who waited, who hoped, who prayed. "Your daddy is very brave," Bob said gently. "And I bet he thinks about you every single day. Even when he's far away. You're right here." He tapped gently over his heart. "Right here." Emma smiled, tears in her eyes, and hugged him. Tyler rolled his eyes and muttered to Kayla, "Great, now we're a therapy session." The afternoon wore on. More children came and went, some excited, some crying, some asking for impossible things. Bob listened to them all with the same patience, the same warmth. Around 4 p.m., a group of teenagers approached, phones out, filming. They were the kind who fed on content, any content. One of them, A boy named Derek with bleached hair and a Supreme hoodie smirked as they got closer. "Yo, check out this discount Santa," Derek said loudly, addressing his phone. "Bro, that beard is so fake. Look at this setup. Is this the North Pole or a garage sale?" His friends laughed. Another team, Madison, stepped closer. "Sir, are you like a real Santa? Or did they just grab you from the parking lot?" Bob looked at them calmly. "I'm a volunteer, here to make kids happy." "Volunteer?" Derek laughed. "Dude, you're supposed to look the part. That suit is from Party City, and that beard." He reached out as if to tug it. Bob caught his wrist gently but firmly. His grip, despite his age, was solid. "Please don't." Derek yanked his hand back, embarrassed, trying to play it off. "Whoa, aggressive Santa. Guys, did you see that? Santa's got anger issues." They filmed for another minute, mocking the decorations, the setup, Bob's costume, and then moved on, laughing, uploading their video with hashtags. Hashtag fake Santa, hashtag mall fail, hashtag Christmas trash. Tyler watched the whole exchange. Instead of defending Bob, he walked over after the teens left. "You need to handle situations like that better. You can't grab customers." Bob looked at him steadily. He was about to pull off the beard in front of children. "Still, we can't have complaints. This whole Santa thing might not even happen next year if we keep getting this kind of feedback." Tyler walked away, shaking his head. Kayla, the photographer, approached Bob quietly during a break. "Hey, Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry about those kids. They're jerks." Bob smiled. "It's all right, Kayla. People see what they expect to see." "What do you mean?" "They see an old man in a cheap suit, they don't see what's underneath." Kayla wanted to ask more, but another family arrived, and Bob turned his attention back to the children. By 6 p.m., the mall was reaching peak chaos. The line for Santa photos stretched long. Parents were getting impatient. Kids were getting cranky. Tyler kept checking his watch, muttering about overtime costs. Then, through the crowded corridor, a man in a long winter coat walked toward the North Pole display. He was tall, fit, with close-cropped graying hair and a military bearing that made people instinctively step aside. Beside him, holding his hand, was a little girl about 7 years old, wearing a blue winter dress. The man was Lieutenant General David Chen, 3-star general, commander of Fort Carson Army Base just outside Colorado Springs. He'd come to the mall on his daughter Sophie's insistence. She wanted to see Santa one more time before Christmas. General Chen had fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. He'd commanded thousands of soldiers. He'd briefed presidents. But his daughter's Christmas wish was non-negotiable. They joined the line. Sophie bounced excitedly. General Chen smiled, checking his phone, responding to a message from his chief of staff. As they got closer to the front, General Chen looked up, and froze. The Santa in the chair. The way he sat. The way he held himself despite the ill-fitting costume, the pale blue eyes. The patient, weathered face. General Chen's heart stopped. It couldn't be. But it was. Colonel Robert Mitchell. The man who had saved his life 30 years ago. Vietnam, 1972. The Shau Valley. Then Lieutenant David Chen had been 23 years old, terrified, leading his first combat patrol when the ambush hit. Gunfire erupted from 3 sides, his radio operator went down, his sergeant was hit, Chen took shrapnel in his leg and went down hard, bleeding, disoriented. Through the chaos, a figure appeared, Major Robert Mitchell, older, experienced, leading a rescue team. Mitchell had dragged Chen to cover, returned fire, called in air support, and personally carried Chen half a mile to the extraction point while under fire. "Stay with me, Lieutenant," Mitchell had said, his voice calm despite the hell around them. "You're going home, I promise." Chen had spent 3 months recovering. When he returned to duty, he learned Major Mitchell had been awarded the Medal of Honor for that action and 3 others, but by then, Mitchell had retired quietly, disappearing from military life. For 30 years, General Chen had wanted to thank him. He tried to find him, but Mitchell had moved, changed addresses, lived quietly. The trail had gone cold. And now, here he was, wearing a $1999 beard and a faded Santa suit in a shopping mall. General Chen stepped out of line. "Sophie, wait here for a moment." "But Daddy, just 1 minute, sweetheart." He walked directly to the Santa chair. Bob was listening to a young boy explain why he wanted a puppy.
When he looked up and saw General Chen standing there, his expression didn't change, just calm recognition. "Hello, David," Bob said quietly. General Chen's throat tightened. "Colonel Mitchell." "Just Bob now." "Sir, I've been looking for you for 30 years. Bob smiled faintly. "I've been right here." General Chen's eyes were wet. "You saved my life. Shau Valley, 1972. I was Lieutenant Chen. You carried me out." "I remember," Bob said simply. The people in line were starting to notice. Tyler, watching from his position, frowned, confused by the interaction. General Chen turned to the crowd, his voice carrying with command authority. "Excuse me, everyone, please. I need a moment." The mall noise didn't stop, but the immediate area went quiet. Parents looked up. Kids stopped fidgeting. "This man," General Chen said, gesturing to Bob, "is not just a mall Santa. This is Colonel Robert Mitchell. He is a Medal of Honor recipient. In 1972, he saved my life and the lives of 11 other soldiers in the Shau Valley under heavy enemy fire. He carried me 3 miles to safety while wounded himself. He is one of the greatest heroes this nation has ever produced." The crowd went silent. Phones came out, not to mock this time, but to record. Tyler's face went white. General Chen continued, his voice thick with emotion. "And he's been sitting in this chair, in this mall, volunteering his time to make children smile. Not for recognition, not for praise, because that's who he is. A man who serves." General Chen stepped back, came to rigid attention, and raised his right hand in the sharpest, most perfect military salute Bob had ever seen. "Thank you, sir. For my life. For my daughter's father. For everything." Bob slowly stood. His knees protested. The costume looked ridiculous on him, but his posture, that was pure military bearing. He returned the salute with equal precision. For several long seconds, the two men held it, a general and a colonel, a young lieutenant and the major who'd saved him. 30 years and a lifetime between them. Then the applause started. Scattered at first, then building, parents, children, mall employees, shoppers passing by. It rolled through the court like a wave.
General Chen lowered his salute and stepped forward, embracing Bob. "I have looked for you for so long. I'm just a volunteer, David. Nothing special." "Sir, you are everything special." Tyler Morrison stood frozen, his face a mask of horror and shame. Kayla, the photographer, was crying as she recorded the scene on her phone. General Chen turned to address the crowd again. "I'm Lieutenant General David Chen, commander of Fort Carson. If anyone here has ever wondered what true service looks like, it's this man. Not seeking attention, not demanding recognition, just giving." He looked at Tyler. "Who's in charge of this mall?" Tyler stepped forward, trembling. "I'm the assistant manager, sir." "You should be ashamed. This man should be treated with the highest respect, not as cheap labor." I didn't know." "You didn't need to know his rank to treat him with dignity, that's the problem." Tyler looked at the ground, unable to respond. Sophie, General Chen's daughter, approached Bob shyly. "Are you really a hero, Mr. Santa?" Bob knelt down, his old knees protesting, getting to her eye level. "No, sweetheart, I'm just someone who tried to help people. Your daddy is the hero. He's served this country his whole life. Can I still tell you my Christmas wish?" "Of course." Sophie whispered in his ear. Bob smiled, tears in his eyes, and nodded. "I think that's a very good wish." General Chen's chief of staff had arrived at the mall. Someone had called him after seeing the commotion. Within 30 minutes, a full honor guard from Fort Carson arrived, 6 soldiers in dress uniforms carrying flags. The mall management, now the actual general manager, not just Tyler, rushed to the scene, apologizing profusely, offering Bob anything he wanted. Bob just shook his head. "I don't want anything, I'm here for the kids." But General Chen had other ideas. "Colonel Mitchell, I'd like to invite you to Fort Carson tomorrow, Christmas Day. We're having a ceremony for soldiers who can't be with family. Would you join us as guest of honor?" Bob hesitated. "I don't know, David. I'm not much for ceremonies." "Sir, you've spent 6 years making children happy in this mall. Let us honor you properly. Just once." Bob looked at the crowd, at the parents filming, at the children watching with wide eyes, at Kayla crying behind her camera. "All right," he said quietly. "For the soldiers." The next day, Christmas morning,
Colonel Robert Mitchell stood on a stage at Fort Carson in his old dress uniform, the one he'd kept in the back of his closet, still fitting after all these years. His Medal of Honor hung around his neck, the only time he'd worn it in public in decades. General Chen introduced him to an audience of 500 soldiers and their families. Bob's speech was short, simple. Service isn't about recognition. It's about showing up. Whether that's in a jungle in 1972 or a mall in 2024. Just show up for each other. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. The video of General Chen saluting Bob in the mall went viral. Within 48 hours, it had 20 million views. News outlets picked it up. The story spread. Mall Santa revealed as Medal of Honor hero. The mall issued a formal apology and created the Colonel Mitchell Christmas Fund, donating $50,000 annually to veteran organizations in Bob's name. Tyler Morrison resigned. Derek, the teenager who'd mocked Bob, posted an apology video that also went viral. I learned that you can't judge people by what they look like. Real heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they wear cheap Santa suits.
1 year later.
Christmas Eve. Colorado Springs Galleria Mall. The North Pole display had been completely redesigned, professional decorations, better lighting, a throne-like chair. And in that chair sat Colonel Robert Mitchell, now in a professionally tailored Santa suit, custom-made to fit him perfectly, with a high-quality beard. But Bob had insisted on one thing. He still wanted to be a volunteer. No payment. It's not about the money, he'd told the mall manager. It never was. The line stretched even longer now. Parents came specifically to see the hero Santa. News crews stopped by periodically. But Bob treated every child the same way he always had, with patience, kindness, and complete attention. General Chen and Sophie visited again. Sophie, now 8, climbed onto Bob's lap. Did my wish come true? Bob asked. Yes, Sophie whispered. Daddy's been home more. General Chen had requested a stateside assignment after that Christmas Eve encounter, realizing that Bob's sacrifice 30 years ago had given him a daughter he needed to spend more time with. As evening approached and the mall prepared to close, one last visitor arrived. An old man, maybe 75, in a wheelchair pushed by his daughter. He wore a faded army jacket with Vietnam patches. He wheeled up to Bob and saluted. Colonel Mitchell. Bob looked closer, then recognition flooded his face. Jimmy Patterson. Yes, sir. Patterson had been one of the 11 soldiers Bob saved in 1972. They'd lost touch decades ago. I saw you on the news, Patterson said, his voice shaking. I had to come. Had to say thank you. You gave me 50 more years, sir. I got to see my kids grow up. My grandkids. All because you didn't leave me behind. Bob stood and embraced him. 2 old soldiers, crying in a mall, wearing a Santa suit and an army jacket, connected by a moment of heroism half a century ago. The photographer, Kayla, still working there, now assistant manager, captured it. That photo made the front page of the Colorado Springs Gazette, brothers reunited under the Christmas lights. That night, after the mall closed, Bob sat alone in the Santa chair for a moment, the lights twinkling around him. He thought about his wife, gone 6 years. He thought about the soldiers he'd served with, some who made it home, some who didn't. He thought about the children who'd sat on his lap, whispering their hopes and dreams. This was service. Not the kind that came with medals or recognition, though those had their place. But the everyday kind. The showing up. The listening. The caring. A mall security guard approached. Mr. Mitchell, we're locking up. Just 1 more minute, Bob said. He looked at the chair, at the decorations, at the empty mall. Next year, he'd be back. Not because he had to, but because this was where he was meant to be. In a cheap suit or an expensive one, with a fake beard or a real one, Colonel Robert Mitchell would keep showing up. For the children. For the families. For the chance to turn a moment of magic into a memory that might carry someone through the hard times ahead. Because that's what heroes do. They don't always fight wars. Sometimes they just sit in a red chair and listen. And sometimes, if you're lucky, a general walks through the door and reminds you that what you did mattered. Not just 30 years ago in a jungle, but today, tomorrow, and every Christmas Eve to come. The lights of the North Pole display dimmed. Bob stood, stretched his old back, and walked toward the exit. Behind him, on the chair, sat a small handwritten note left by Sophie. thank you for bringing Daddy home more. You're my favorite Santa. Love, Sophie. Bob folded it carefully and put it in his pocket, right next to his wallet, right next to a faded photo of soldiers from 1972, right where it belonged.